Hey everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. In today's video tutorial, we are going to discuss what containers and grids are in Elementor. So if you don't know what a grid is or what a container is, what are the differences between either one, when should you use a container, when should you use a grid, don't worry, by the end of this video, you are going to have a perfect understanding of what a container and a grid is and when you should use one or the other. It's really important to understand in Elementor that containers, they are a fundamental part of the page building process. So by having a good understanding of containers and grids and how they work, you'll be able to create just about any type of layout that you want to. So let's go ahead and start out with the container. The first one that we have here, this container is referred to as a Flexbox container. Okay, so I'm going to drag this container or this Flexbox container onto our canvas. And as you can see here, container layout is Flexbox. If you click in here, you can change it to a grid. A grid is also a container. It's just a different type of container layout. But we're going to right now focus on Flexbox container. Okay, and what I'm going to do, just to make things easier, I'm going to go over to these 6 dots, go to style, and I'm going to give it a background color so you have a visual of what we are working with. So I got a light blue background on our Flexbox container. In Elementor, a container or a Flexbox container is basically a section of your website that can hold one or multiple elements. So for example, if I drag in a heading, I drag in a button, and I drag in an icon, you can see I have 3 elements within my Flexbox container. And you can look here on your navigation panel. You'll see a heading, a button, and an icon all within the container. Another cool thing you can do, not to get off topic, you can also click over here and on the container name or the container name, and you can change it to whatever you want. So if it makes it easier for you to identify these with different names, you can change the names here. Like you can even change the heading, to whatever you want. I'll just leave it as heading for now. But as you can see, in this main container or this container, we have 3 elements. If we come up here to the 6 dots, you can control how the elements in this container appear. For example, if we head over to the layout tab, we can control the width of the container. We can control the height of the container. We can control the order in which the elements appear. Say if you want them to go across, we can control that. We can reverse the order. We can put it back to the way that we had it. We can reverse it another in the opposite way. So as you can see, you have ways of controlling the direction of how the elements appear. You can even come down here and change the gap in between each element. So if you want to put a lot of spacing in between each element, you can do so. If you don't want no spacing, you can put it 0, or we can leave it on the default settings, which is about 20 pixels of gap. Now, you can come over here and you can justify the content by putting it in the center. You can come down here and align it in the middle, or on the end, or at the top. We'll keep it in the middle. I think that looks good. Or you can put it at, you can also put all the elements at the very far left of the container. You can put it in the middle, the end. You can space it around. You can space evenly. I mean, the options are endless what you can do with the elements with a Flexbox container. So that's basically what a Flexbox container is, and that's how it works. Now let's look at a grid, and let's see how a grid works. Now, with a grid, this grid has 3 columns and 2 rows. Okay, these columns in here, these are really called cells, and you have to use every cell of the grid in the order in which it's in the specific order, like in a row. So in other words, if I take a heading and I drag it on here, this is the first heading. If I drag another heading, say if I want to put a heading right here on this cell. Watch what happens. I can't even put it here, here, here. I have to put it here. So you have to use every cell before you can get to the next cell, and it's always going to be in a row. So let's do this. Let's change this to 1, 2, 3, We'll change this to 4. And we'll change this to 5. And then we'll change this one to 6. So as you can see, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 all going in a row, and everything has to go in that specific order. Say if I delete the 5. Remember, we can't have any blank columns or any blank cells in a grid. So if I delete 5, it'll put 6 where 5 was. If I delete 4, it'll put 6 where 4 was. So as you can see, you have to use every cell in that order. Now, I'll delete the 6 out for just a moment. Say if I want to put something here, but I want this one to be blank and this one to be blank. You cannot do that. Like I said, you have to use every cell. But there is a trick. You can come up here and type in spacer. Spacer is just a blank widget. It's just, there's nothing on a spacer. It's just for purposes like this where you can put something there as like a placeholder. Now you can come over here and drag in a heading. We can call this 4. And then you can come over here and then you can drag in another spacer for this one. So as you can see, you have a grid with 6 cells and you have 2 empty cells, but they're not really empty because there is a spacer in there, but it does appear to be empty. So the grid is really helpful in Elementor when you're creating like certain types of layouts. Now, before I show you how containers and grids work awesome together, I do want to show you a couple more things. Let's delete this column or this grid. Let's add another grid on here. If you come down here to autoflow and you change autoflow to column, watch what happens when you add an element to the grid. You have a heading here. You cannot put a heading here. Now you have to put it here because now it's going in columns. So it's going to be, this is going to be 1, this is going to be 2, this will be 3, this one will be 4, okay, this one will be 5, and then this one will be 6. So by coming down here and changing the layout of the grid to a column, you are able to put them in instead of using a row, you can use a column. If you want to go back to a row, just click on row and it'll put it back 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. If you use a column, it'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So hopefully that makes sense so far. But what I really want to do is show you all how to create some type of like simple, complex design with both containers and grids. I think that will really show you the power of how grids or containers and grids work awesome together. But before I do that, one more thing I want to show you. Let's delete out, let's say for example, if I want to have a background color on one of these cells, right? You cannot. There is no way to put a background color. I can put a background color on the main grid by coming up to the grid, the 6 dots for the grid, go to style, and go to a color, and we can put a background color. But there is no way to put an individual background color on any of these particular cells unless you take a container and put a container within the cell. Now when you put a container in the cell, you have more control with the Flexbox container. So since I put a container in this cell, I can click the square, I can modify the container, and I can make this container black. I can come up here and add another container for this cell. I can make this container, maybe I'll make this one red. And then I can come up here, I can put a button in this container. I can put another button in this container. I can come over here and I can put a heading over here. Or I meant to put a heading there. I can put a heading in there. And I can put maybe a button in there. And then, as you can see, we have a button and a heading in this one and 2 buttons here. And then this container, since I'm using a container, I can control everything about this container and the elements within it. So I can say, all right, I want everything in this container to go across. I want it in the center, and I want to put it in the middle. And then this one, say I want to reverse the order. I want to keep it stacked, but I want to go the other way. I can do that just like that, and then I can put this in the center as well. So as you can see, I'm still in a grid. This is still a grid, but I have a container in I have containers in 2 of the cells of the grid, so I can have more flexibility over the elements within that Flexbox container. So hopefully that made sense. But what I'm going to do is delete this and delete this. We're going to come over to Google, and we're going to type in what is it? Custom web page design layout. Let's go to images. Let's see if we can find something here, like maybe something like this. So where we have a header, a navigation, a content section, and a footer. We can create something like this in Elementor. It would require us to use both containers and grids. This is actually a perfect example. So let me show you how to build this out in Elementor. If you want to pause this video and go to try making this yourself using what you've learned so far about containers and grids, go for it. But otherwise, I'll show you how to build this out. So what we're going to do is head back to the page builder, and we're going to drag in a container, and I'm going to give it a color. I'll actually use pink. So let's see, they have like a hot pink going on over here, so I'll use a pink as well. There we go. And then I'll drag a heading into there. So now I'll call this header, and then I'll center it in the middle. So there we go. We have the header created. Now we need to create like 2 columns. It looks like we need to have a column on the left and a column on the right. The left column will be a little smaller. The column on the right will be a little bit bigger. So to do that, we're going to head back to the page builder, and we'll drag in another container. Now what we can do, well, first I'm going to give this a background color just so you can see what we're working with. So I'll give it a gray background for now. And we need a column here and a column here. So we could put a container in here and set it to 1 row with 2 columns, but this container or this grid won't really work for us in terms of making this design, because we can only have, we can't set an individual background color for this column or this cell. I can change the color of the grid, but it'll be for the entire grid. So as you can see, we can't change the color. So what we need to do is just delete the grid altogether. So what we're going to do is we have a container here. This is a Flexbox container, and we're going to put another container in a container. So we're going to come up here, and we're going to put a container here, and I'm going to make this darker so we can see what we're working with. And then I'm going to put another container in here, because we need 2 containers. We need one on the left and one on the right. So I'm going to right click and duplicate. So now I got 2 containers. Now you're probably wondering, but wait, in the example it's got 2 columns on the left and right. So why is this stacked? Remember, so if we come up here to the main container that houses these 2 individual containers, and we go to layout, by default everything is going stacked up and down. We need to put it going across. So if we click this arrow, look what happens. Now we have a container on the left and a container on the right. Because this main container, when you say to the main container to go to the right, everything in that container will go across. So that's all we need to do, is just change it to the right, or the right arrow. So now, as you can see here on the navigation, we have a container, and in that container we have 2 more containers, and if we click on these arrows, we'll see that these containers are empty because there's nothing in either container right now. So far we got the header and we got the 2 columns, but we just need to drag this down a little bit and make it a little smaller so we have our navigation. So this will be our navigation, And then this one will be our content section. So let's go ahead and drag in some element over here. So we'll put a navigation widget there. And of course I can't because this is the free version of Elementor, so we'll just choose the list. Put that there. And we'll just change the color on this so we can see it. And then we'll change the icon color. That looks good. All right, so we have our navigation here, and we can put our content here. So let's do that. Okay, so far it's coming along pretty nice. We have the header, we have the navigation, and we have the content section. Now we need to put the footer. So let's do the footer. So if I drag in another container, and their footer is green, so we'll use green. Now, as you can see, it's putting the footer all the way across, and the navigation, see in the example, the navigation is going all the way down. So what we need to do is delete this, and we're going to come over here and take this container and drag it into this container. So now again, we have another container in a container. Now we can change the background color of this container. We can set it to green. Oops. There we go. And then we can drag in a heading, and we can call this footer. We can make this white. And there you go. I mean, we pretty much have the same design here. Maybe just change the colors up. So we can change this to like a yellow. Let's see. And then change the writing back to black. There we go. And then this one we can change it to orange. Or just another color is fine. That's fine for now. Okay, there we go. And then the footer is green. So as you can see, we pretty much have a design similar to this. The only thing is, like, there's no gaps. Like, we have some gaps here, so we can remove all these gaps. So if we come up to this main container here and go to advanced, we can put 0 in here. It'll remove the padding because Elementor puts in about 20 pixels of padding. This is a gap, which is controlled over here under layout, under gaps. So we would just change this to 0, and there you go. There's no gap now. And then if you want to, you can remove this gray background, and we can get rid of that. And there we go. Or we can keep it if you want to. Now, the thing is, if we want to put this green bar on the edge, we can do that as well. We need to remove the padding from the content container. So come to advanced on the content container. And as you can see, everything is pushed up on the edge. Look, the footer looks good, but the writing looks like it's too much on the edge. So what we can do is we can edit the padding for the heading. So we can put like 20 on the top, 20 on the left, or 20 on the left and 20 on the right. And then same thing here. We can do the same thing. We can put 20 on the right and then 20 on the left, and that looks good. And we can even do it for the footer too. We can put, you know, maybe 20 in there as well, so it lines up all the text, and that looks pretty good. So as you can see, we were able to successfully create a complex design. And now the cool thing is, since we're using containers, we can control how all of our elements appear. So if I want to put another element in this container, all we need to do is drag in like a heading, and then we can put over here menu, and we can drag this up here just like so. And then say if you want to put you want to get this design more complex, you can even throw in a grid. If we want to put a grid in here, to put in like some links, like say if you have some links for your footer and you want to put some links here, links here, links here. Now we're building out our footer using grids, and it looks pretty cool. So this is how you can use Elementor this is how you can use containers and grids together to create your design. So hopefully you found this video helpful. If there's anything that you would like to see, any clarification, I know this might still seem a little confusing, but as you play around in Elementor with containers and grids, it does get pretty easy. But if you have any questions, anything that you'd like to see, put in the comments, and I'll be happy to make some more videos. Also, be sure to subscribe so you can be notified, or hit the bell notification so you can receive notification when I come up with future videos, and be sure to subscribe as well.